Today we have Nick Kline, a 2013 graduate of Great Valley, who went to Drexel University in Philadelphia for a year before transferring to South Carolina. While he was at South Carolina, he got a job during the summer working at the Lobster Roll in Cape May, New Jersey. And that seems to have sparked an interest in entrepreneurism. And during that time, he moved up their managerial ladder before starting Nick Filet in Paoli in 2018. Then you opened a second Nick Filet in Cape May. Then the first franchise of the business opened in Wayne in December. And now there are two new outlets down in Orlando, Florida, and another one coming to Westchester. Wow, you've been busy, Nick. Congratulations. How's business?
Business is good. A year ago on this day, I didn't think I would be in Orlando or opening anymore with COVID, but we just got to work and good things happened.
You got to work. Let's get into that.
Yeah.
What drew you to the restaurant business? Was there any family background in the restaurant business? Anything prior to your job working at the Lobster Roll?
So my grandfather owned a hoagie shop a long time ago. But I was never really super interested in it. So I was very interested in sports. And so I was going to Drexel for sport management and ended up just being overwhelmed by the amount of sports I was doing. I would go to class about sports. I would watch sports. I would manage sports. I would homework about sports. So it kind of killed my love for sports because it was just too much. I quickly transitioned to the restaurant / hospitality because it had the same sports feel, but it was different enough. I think within the first weekend of working, I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I really enjoyed working at Quincy's. And the only downside to the job is it was 7 months of the year instead of a full year. So kind of how the idea started is I was looking for steakhouse jobs to manage a steakhouse so I could just be active all year. And then one day I was like, man, I would just love to, I just said this in passing. I would just love to open a steakhouse one day. I was like, what would I call it? And I was like, Nick Filet. I was like, oh, wait, filet mignon, that's an unbelievable name.
Yeah.
So I was just saying this in passing. I had no intentions of doing it. And then my dad called me one day. He's like, don't do a steakhouse. We already have thousands of them. There's nothing new and unique about a steakhouse. What if you put filet on a bun and charge $10 for it? I go to Acme, I get a filet, I cook it, I bite right through it. And I'm like, what just happened? I'm holding this big, nice, thick filet on a bun. I'm like, this is the best hamburger I've ever tasted in my life. How have I never had this in, I guess I was 23 at the time. How have I never had this in my life? How is this not a thing? So I immediately go to Google. I'm like, filet mignon sandwich. And I'm flipping through 24 pages of pictures. And there's literally not one thing that is in my hand on Google. And I call him, I'm like, let's go. I was like, no one's doing it. And I was obviously working with, at the time, Cisco sales reps and food vendors. So I knew I could get the price of filet a lot cheaper if this is my main thing. And basically 5 months later, I opened.
Nick, what skills, what personality traits did you bring to the table in starting your own business that you think are essential? Obviously there was an amount of bravery, a little bit of courage there in starting the business. What else do people need when they're starting their own business?
So I think there's a couple of things. One, you really have to love what you do. I kind of heard that throughout high school, and I always kind of thought it was corny. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. You got to love what you do, but you really, the teachers are right on this one. You really have to love what you do. I did not listen to that when I was a junior and senior. I was like, okay, yeah, you got to love what you do, blah, blah, blah. What's Mr. Mac talking about? I don't know what he's saying. I'm like, yeah, I get it. You really have to love it because it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, doing what you do. for the last 3 years, I don't think I've taken more than one day off of like every single day. My day start to finish is about Nick Filet. I think you have to be a super competitive person. Like you're not competing against restaurants, you're competing against everything. If you really want to succeed, you got to outwork everyone, outcompete everyone. That's why I said this. It was very similar to sports. And I think you have to be thick-skinned. Like you can't be afraid of criticism. Like everyone nowadays has access to the internet. You can just go and blast a 1-star review and say this is the worst meal I ever had. You kind of have to block that out. Like you can read it, but you have to like not let it affect your everyday life. And I would say don't be afraid to fail. I started studying Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. They all talk about, I fail so I can succeed. You just have to take that failure, let it fuel you, and eventually make it a success. So I say, love what you do. Don't be afraid to fail.
Nick, when you're planning to create that store in Paoli, or you're opening the one in Cape May, or now that you're down in Orlando, what's the planning process? Do you scout sites first? Do you scout market? What's the planning that goes into opening a venue?
So kind of the first search is like the demographics. Like, okay, we know this average household income buys our product. This many people need to be near 5 miles. So that's kind of the first thing I look at. Then once I get, my basic parameter, then I go and look for sites in that city. If I have one spot in one location, it's going to be 3 times as expensive to build out as the other. You kind of have to weigh your pros and cons. So those are the big things.
What do you like best? Like, you worked for other people before. What do you like best about being your own boss, about being the entrepreneur?
There's a lot. The main thing is you can control every aspect of the business. If it's snowing and no one's coming in, just close. I can control the price of the sandwiches. I control my hours. I control basically how much money I make is controlled by me. Controlling everything is really cool.
How many employees are there, and what do you think your responsibility is as the business owner to those employees?
Well, I have close to 15 employees by the end of the year. Our first franchisee is 22. Our Cape May manager is 19. Our Westchester manager is 23. Our Paoli manager is 22. So it's a lot of young, hungry kids. The small businesses, if you give the young kids the opportunity to manage a restaurant, I wouldn't be shocked if, at least on my end, a lot of these 22 and 23, they kind of just work their way up, save money, and then they go start their own place or they go start their own business. So I think, if you encourage these kids, I think they could do what I did at 24, start my own restaurant. So I think a lot of small businesses start other small businesses. I want the first ever employees to be the head, with me at the top when we're as big as Chick-fil-A, hopefully.
That's a great ambition. When Nick Filet is as big as Wendy's or McDonald's, are you going to be like Mark Cuban? Are you going to buy an NBA franchise?
So actually, I have thought about this. I don't think I'll buy an NBA franchise. My dream is to start a WNBA franchise in Philadelphia.
You're not going to cherry pick Vernarchek from us, are you?
I might have to.
He's a good coach.
He's a good coach. Yeah.
And Nick, that's where we're going to conclude it then. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us. You're an inspiration. Good luck with business. I mean, it sounds like it's got, its legs under it already, but, from the Great Valley community, we wish you nothing but the best of luck. So thank you, sir.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.